Welcome to the episode of Locked In. This has been a comment requested review and I finally got my hands on it. You've seen my unboxing, you've seen my first ride impressions. Now this is the full review of the Poseidon X Cyclocross bikepacking gravel bike. This bike is a lot of things, and if you want to find out if it's the perfect bike for you to spend that $600 hard-earned dollars that you have, please stay tuned and let's get into the video. In this video we're going to be going over specs and features, ride quality, price, and my final thoughts. So let's get into specs and features. The reason why I say features is because this bike is honestly feature-packed, especially for that price point. So let's get into the initial specs of the bike. This bike comes stock with Shimano 8-speed Claris. It is thankfully the new gen, so again, you're not going to see that shift cable sticking out. You're going to have basically the ergonomics of the old generation, or previous generation I should say, Shimano 105 Tiagra Sora levers, but in an 8-speed configuration. Now, Poseidon finally kind of listened as far as the rest of the spec of the bike on what a lot of us have been saying about the gearing on these bikes. They did spec a smaller front crankset. I don't exactly know what BCD it is because they don't list it. It is a 4-bolt, and it is a 46-34 ratio, and in the rear they put an 11-34 ratio cassette. Now that is going to give you that beautiful 1-to-1 gear ratio for climbing, which is a little bit better than any bike in this price range that we'll be speaking about later, but I'm not sure based on the BCD if they could have gone to a 32 for that inner ring, which would, in my opinion, been a little bit more ideal. And this bike features flat mount disc brakes, which is rare for this price. It is a quick release frame. The frame is aluminum with a tapered carbon fork, and it's spec'd with 35C small block Kenda tires that are tubed. It features an alloy stem, bar, and seat post, Poseidon's own Physique saddle that I like to call it, and the crankset. I don't know, I've never heard of the brand before, but it is an external bottom bracket, which is nice to see. So it is going to be a stiffer unit than a square taper. Now as far as features go, this is really where this bike comes with a lot of mounts that you wouldn't expect, especially for this price point. You have rear bolt mounts, you have lowrider front rack mounts, you have a fork mount to run either a fender or even a dynamo front light. You have, depending on the size of the frame, 3 sets of bottle bosses inside of the frame. That is only going to be for medium larges and extra larges, sorry for anyone who rides a small. And you do get the bottle mount under the down tube. So this thing is equipped with basically, minus the top 2 bolts, every single bolt combination that's currently popular for the gravel segment. And it's also internally cable routed, which is fantastic and insane for this price point. Now let's get into ride quality. Now, in my opinion, the ride quality really has improved from their previous road bike. I think they finally did really go back to the drawing board and take some notes. I don't know if it was from my video, but I'd like to think that I helped out. But this bike finally rides with some actual feel and fun. It's got a stiff ride. Don't get me wrong, this bike is definitely stiff, and you want to be able to enjoy it for the full day of riding, no matter where you're at. This bike definitely has a better, lively feel. It's a little bit more comfortable than the road bike, even though it is still very stiff. This really tailors itself to its cyclocross geometry, in my opinion. But that's where this bike really starts to split as far as the ride quality. It's got bike packing mounts like a gravel bike. It's got, in my opinion, the geometry and kind of handling characteristics of a cross bike, and the stiffness of it. Definitely. So this is going to be for somebody who's looking for something that kind of does it all. The only thing that you do sacrifice with this geometry compared to a traditional gravel bike geometry is the front end is a little bit lower, which is great for someone who wants that really aggressive position for cyclocross. But for someone who's looking for that little more endurance front end geometry, obviously you could ride the stem fully up and flip the stem up to get it really tall, but it's not going to be as versatile, let's say, as a true gravel geometry. But it has all the mounts and little things to basically set yourself up for a bike packing adventure. So that's where this bike is definitely a mixed bag. Obviously it would be more supple with a bigger tire on there or a 650, but I'm just talking about the stock configuration. Now finally, let's get into price. As you've probably heard or seen from the title of this video, this is a $600 bike, and that is currently shipped to you for that price at $599. Now this segment is definitely starting to get more traction, and if you're watching this video, make sure to turn notifications on, subscribe to this channel, because I will be doing a super review of the State Bike Warhawk, the Aventon Quixote, and the Poseidon X to see what is the best way to spend basically your $600 on a gravel, cross bike, road, mixed condition, whatever machine for your hard-earned dollars. Now I think this is a killer bike on paper for sure based on that price point. You're getting a lot lighter bike than the Aventon Quixote for that money. You're getting more mounting options. So for the money, you're getting a lighter bike with more mounts. So what's the downside? So let's get into my final thoughts to talk about that. So again, if you're looking for a more endurance geometry bike because you're newer into it and you want that look, or you want that feel because maybe you're not as flexible, or you're not going to use it more as a commuter and want something more relaxed. This bike, geometry-wise, you're going to have to basically be okay with having the stem all the way up and flipped up. Some people don't care, but some people do. Secondly, the ride quality on this is definitely a lot more sporty than it is on the Aventon Quixote, which is chromoly steel. That's one of the big things I took away even from the first few pedal strokes between the two bikes. This is going to be something that will beat you up a little bit more in the stock configuration. Not saying that it's uncomfortable, but you're going to notice more road vibration based on the ride on this than you will on the Aventon, which are spec'd with the same size and same spec of tire. It's basically just the frame material that's different between the two. So that's based on personal preference. If you're just out there and you want something that's going to be great for cross season, going to be great for bike packing all year long, and you don't mind that slightly more aggressive position, or are okay with a taller stem stack, this bike would still fit your needs. It's got all the mounts and clearance you could really want. Now, as far as tire clearance, I've basically fit a 40 in there, no problem. You could probably fit a 42. A 650 by 47, 48 would be totally fine. 50 might be a little close. I don't have a tire that is that exact size to test it, but this is a very versatile bike in that aspect. Now, in a perfect world, this would be a through axle bike, but again, for $600, just to get all the features you get is insane. I think this is definitely a smart buy for someone who wants one bike that kind of can cover a lot of bases and you can grow with, because it's, again, a pretty lightweight starter. It'd be a great build project to upgrade, which I might be doing a little bit later, to do basically a one-buy budget project to show you guys how to get this, in my opinion, cyclocross race ready, as well as it opens up bike packing for a lot of people. I think Poseidon really nailed it as far as a package deal on this bike. I don't have any real major gripes on it, minus I think the geometry should have been kind of a split between a cyclocross and gravel geometry to kind of get it kind of in the middle, as well as for true cyclocross bike, there's a little ridge underneath the top tube that I wish they flattened out fully to the rear, or at least flattened out in the back half of the top tube, so when you shoulder it, you don't get that kind of pinch on your shoulder, which is kind of annoying. Depending on how much you're going to be doing that during the race, really depends on your area, but it's something that could be slightly more comfortable, and I'd love to see in the next revision. Lastly, again, this bike is really feature packed, but I wish they would have put the 3-pack mounts on the fork so you could run a anything cage, or at least at minimum 2 bolts on the fork so you could run at least extra water bottles up front for bike packing, since they kind of made it feature rich for that. It does have obviously the lower rack mounts, but bottle bosses would have been really cool to run extra water. So that's my initial opinion. Please comment below if you guys have any more questions that I'd love to answer. Again, I am going to be doing a review of all 3 of these bikes to let you know where to spend your money and what kind of rider each bike actually fits well, in my opinion. So thanks for watching this episode. Please make sure to turn notifications on and click that subscribe button so you can see all my bike vlogs, reviews, DIYs, build series, and everything else that I put on this channel. And thanks for watching another episode of Locked In. Let's get locked in.